And of course, you can't get through it. You can't get through the entire thing without seeing Bill Clinton's name just in bright lights, blink, blink, blinkety blink. Bill. Not the science guy, Bill Clinton, the ex-president of the United States. And so, you know what I mean? NBC has the story. Let's see where they're at. NBC, of course, is going to continue to spin this narrative, much like the Copperfield's team's going to come out with a statement, say there was no wrongdoing. And of course, we're going to see this pattern continue to trend. As many times as their names are mentioned in the documents, as many times as they were on the plane, as many times as they were eating dinner at the house, as many as times as they were on Jeffrey Epstein's island. What else were you there for? Was there no other places to go on vacation? You know, was there no other place? You guys couldn't have gone to Chili's for dinner? You couldn't have got like that 3 for me, $10.99 deal at Chili's for like whatever the occasion was? You had to go to that island? You knew what you were doing on the... So CNN's got it. Let's take a listen.
But it's different now, of course, seeing it in a court filing. These are court files that had been redacted, kept under wraps for many years as part of that civil litigation that I mentioned, and we're going to continue pouring through to uncover what we have found. I should mention none of this, obviously, suggests any wrongdoing by the former president, suggests that he was involved in a crime.
That's it. It doesn't, nothing, listen, it doesn't suggest any wrongdoing. There's not a single ounce of wrongdoing by Bill Clinton. He just so happened to be on the jet like 16 times. He was on the island 14 times. He was mentioned in the deposition 60 times. He just so happened. He didn't have any other billionaire friends. Listen, this is it. This is the thing. Billionaires lend their jets out, like the Mark Cubans, the Grant Cardones, Elon Musk. He doesn't have a jet. He has rocket ships, whatever. He doesn't rent those out. But you know what I mean? If they have them because they're not using them all the time, and if they're not using them all the time, they're just paying for them to sit wherever they're sitting. So they might as well let their friends use their private jets to go here, to go there. The Clintons, they don't want to spend the campaign money, the hard-earned, donated money from the people for their campaign. They don't want to spend that on private jets. So why not call our friend Jeffrey and say, yo, Jay, get the PJ running. Let's go. We need to hit the streets to campaign for this election. And so, like, I get it. I get it. Billionaires, like, use my plane. Here you go. Take it. I'm not using it. Use it for the weekend. Tell them where you want to go, and they'll take you there. Like, it's paid for. Don't worry about it. I'm a billionaire. Like, that's what billionaires do. But at the same time, when you're the president of the United States, I would imagine, now I'm an idiot, but I would imagine you've probably got access to, I don't know, maybe like government plane, regular plane, a private plane that you own. Like there's plenty, a private plane charter person. There's people, like celebrities have charter people. They call and they say, hey, I'm leaving this time from this airport. I need to go here. Like tell them like what gate do I go to? I'm not going through TSA bullshit. I'm just going private. Let me know. And then they walk right onto the tarmac with their Lamborghinis, and then they fucking go right onto the jet. And like they have a guy that does that, like a travel agent, you know what I mean? So the Clintons had other options. And so we're just, now listen, just there's no evidence of any wrongdoing, okay? Listen, they've got a team of people on it. They got a team of people sifting through all the documents, and just to make sure that Bill Clinton was just using the jet and was just hanging out on the island, you know, just to play Monopoly. You know, it's game night. It was Hillary, it was Bill, Jeffrey, David Copperfield, Ghislaine, a few other of their friends. Bill Gates was there, and they were just playing Monopoly, and then they all went home. Like, that's pretty much what happened. Like, it wasn't on and poppin' orgy day when Bill Clinton was in the area and the vicinity of Epstein and his plane, the island, and anything else that had to do with the illegal activities going on. You know what I mean? So no wrongdoing there. Not a single shred of evidence. Not a single shred of evidence. I mean, it's not. It's fun times.
Nearly talking about his connections to Epstein, something that has already, again, been out there, but he has obviously maintained his innocence and denied any wrongdoing as it relates to any abuse by people that Epstein exploited, Tom.
You know, and then that's it. She didn't say anything. Right, that's it. That's the rest of the clip. She didn't actually say anything. She just wants to remind us, to let us know that there's no evidence. There's no evidence right up front. No glaring, nothing really that we can think of that would make any sense of any wrongdoing by the President of the United States. He's got other reasons. He's got other things going on. There's a perfectly good explanation. We've got a team on it. We're going to figure out what that explanation is here in a minute. But there's perfectly good, no wrongdoing. The president, he's fine. There's the reason he's mentioned 50 times and in 50 different documents, it doesn't actually, it's instead of, listen, this is what the news does now. They just, if they don't understand it, they can't admit that. And so instead, we just make stuff up and we talk in circles like this woman did and just say like, well, there's no real evidence of wrongdoing, even though he was on a plane. Just say you don't know what that means, because we don't know what it means either. We don't know what it means that Bill Gates and Bill Clinton and the presidents and the Trumps and the Prince Harry and the Andrews and the Stephen Hawkings and the magicians of the world are on that. No one knows what it means except for them and us. Now, we've got a pretty good idea. And the news is trying to convince us that that idea that we've concluded is no longer accurate. And so it just, it's what they're doing. I mean, it's just what the news does now. And it's just, they're trying to do their best to convince us that the words we're reading on the papers and in the headlines and the articles and these news, that what we're seeing on Twitter and like the real resources and the real places we get our information from, because Lord knows if you're getting all of your news from CNN, Fox News, or NBC, or wherever the fuck, you should probably stop doing that right now. They're trying to convince us it's all just made up. Like, they're legal documents, sweetheart. Like, this isn't a TMZ exploit. This isn't a gotcha story. This isn't a Britney Spears Hulu documentary. TMZ lied the whole way through about the whole thing because it's for entertainment and shock value. This is a legal federal lawsuit against one of the biggest pedophile rings, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. It's one of the number one most significant events in American history's court system. Like, we've got to stop beating around the bush and asking why these people were on the plane, and instead, we gotta listen. We gotta start listening to him, and we just gotta ask him straight out, why were you on the plane? Like, listen, he's not the only presidential related person on the plane. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump was mentioned. RFK was on the plane, and RFK Jr., of course, if you can get through the voice, whatever, I'm sorry, but it just, he's got a perfectly good explanation for why he was on the plane.
I was on Jeffrey Epstein's jet 2 times. I was on it in 1993, and I was on it and I went to Florida with my wife and 2 children to visit my mom over Easter. My wife had some kind of relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, and they offered us a ride to Palm Beach. So I went then, and then on another occasion, I flew again with my family, with I think 4 of my children, and Mary, my wife, to Rapid City, South Dakota, to go fossil hunting for a weekend, and but otherwise I was never on his jet alone. I've been very open about this from the beginning.
So this is what you do. It's what you do as a billionaire. And that's what we're all learning here in the United States, is once you have reached that billionaire status, because 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't so mainstream. There were billionaires, of course, but we didn't have them being public figures splattered all over in our faces 24/7 on social media like we do today. So now we know who the billionaires are, and it's just what you do. And we're learning more and more what billionaires do on a daily basis, whether it's getting to a tin can submarine and go down to the bottom of the ocean to look at some trash, a ship that sunk 1900 years ago. Okay, well, that didn't work out. And so now what else are we going to, well, we've got a friend, he's got a private jet. Let's go fossil hunting as a family. It's a Sunday afternoon. There's no church service for whatever reason this week. The pastor's sick. Let's gas up the PJ and let's, we'll take it. We'll tell them, hey, we're going to South Dakota, and then we'll spend the day out in the middle of the field, the desert. I don't know what's out there, dude. And we'll dig for fossils, dinosaur bones, animal bones, human, whatever bones. And we'll dig for fossils. We'll take pictures. We'll categorize them. We'll put them on the website we made for all the fossils we found as a family, because that's what you do when you're a billionaire. There's no one that I know in this town or within a 50-mile radius as a child that's ever been fossil hunting as a child, teenager, young adult, or even now in their adult life. And I don't think they ever will, especially on a trip via a private jet to another state where I'm sure they had professional tools and a guide and the outfits and the hat. Like, who goes fossil hunting as a like, that's a red flag suspicion right there. Listen, there's no evidence of wrongdoing for RFK Jr., but there is there's a little bit of evidence of wrongdoing for that family trip. Like, fossil hunting. That is something I don't think anyone has ever heard of in the last, name one other time. Find me one other instance where you've heard someone taking the family, the wife, the 4 kids at the time, we're getting in the car, we're getting on the plane. You know what I mean? Like, do you see instead of on the weekends, we get in the car and drive to a trampoline park with our son. Like, that's the extent of the American dream when it comes to being a parent and having a child. You take them to a trampoline park, a bounce house with the inflatables, the big ball pit and the foam. They're there for an hour. They love it. That's the Sunday. If you do that, maybe you get a little lunch. Maybe we hit a little Red Robin. You get some cluckadoodles. Maybe daddy's got a reward, so he's happy. The bill's not as much. You get the Happy Meal, get a little balloon on your way out, you get some lunch, you hit the jump spot, you do the ball pit, you do the foam. It's a blast. It's a great way to end the weekend. And then on the opposite side of that, you've got people hopping on the private plane to take their family fossil hunting. And that's his excuse. And so that's what we're going to see. We're going to continue to see. I don't think Copperfield's team said anything yet. They might just stay quiet for the special sake, because he is set to make the moon disappear, I think. So, it's going to be very, very crazy to see what the excuses are now moving forward as to why you were involved, whether it be with this man, the woman on trial, Miss Maxwell, the plane, the island, the house for dinner, the minor. There's so many layers, and they're just going to keep trying to tell you that the most important people involved, there's no real signs of foul play. There's nothing else there. And I mean, NBC's probably not the only one that's doing it. I mean, it's what's going on here? Who's this? Here's CBS. They're pretty much NBC. It's the same letters. They're all the same fucking thing. But here's CBS talking about it. This is what they have to say.
Documents naming people connected to Jeffrey Epstein have been unsealed. The documents include nearly 950 pages. Last month, a federal judge ruled the names of Epstein's alleged victims and those connected to him must be made public. Epstein was indicted on federal sex trafficking charges in 2019. He later died by suicide. Publication does not imply knowledge
and that's the other
of
thing
his
too.
alleged...
That's it right there. That's the other thing. We have to keep bringing this up. It has to be their first line of defense. They have to remind you that he was convicted before. This was back in 2019, before the world was different. He was a person of interest then. These names were already out there. These people already went through the scrutiny. We've already taken care of it. And so also, hey, just a reminder, he did in fact commit suicide in his jail cell via New York City. And like, we're spinning that up again, which is amazing. It's fantastic. I love it. I love the fact that every time we're not done with this. I think there's like tapes that are coming out missing from the FBI, leakage, some sort of stuff, whatever Meg Kelly's spewing, that crazy freaking witch. She's insane. And so it's just one of the most, we're not done with Epstein yet. And like, we can't even, after they got done seizing $600 million worth of assets from him, they put him in a jail cell where they remove another prisoner, put him in, and then turn off all the cameras, and then had like a security guard who just started like 3 months ago part-time watching the cell, and like some other guy who probably was involved in the whole thing. And then all of a sudden, magically, all of the evidence lines up to lead us to believe that what the media is saying is that he hung himself in the cell. And so, like, now, of course, like, you have the likes of stand-up comedians. You have the likes of politicians like Donald Trump. I mean, people everywhere around the world know that Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. Everyone knows it. No one denies it. No one is wiser. No one has any other excuse. No one has proof. No one has facts. No one has gesture. No one has anything. Every single person on the planet, if we had to come together on one topic, one thing about this entire fucking story, is that he did not hang himself in that cell, and that some individual organization, however you want to define it, part of the government, I don't know, whatever the setup was, this is mob mentality, old school rules. You know what I mean? Like, we can get anyone in prison killed. Like, we've seen the movies, we've seen the TV shows, a little shanking in the lunch line, and bada bing, bada boom, your problem's done with. No more names, no more list, no more testifying for Jeffrey. He's donezo. You know what I mean? And then we he hung himself. He's dead. He's suicide. We put him on suicide watch like 3 weeks ago. So clearly this was a suicide. And then what? We just slip $800,000 to the coroner to say, well, yeah, it's kind of conclusive. Not really, but it kind of is. So sure, that's what it was. And so if we're going to solve world peace and get everyone on board, I think we can all agree. But the news has to continue spinning this narrative, because if they don't, then the whole house of cards falls down. If they do not continue spinning the narrative of Epstein killing himself, then their whole house of cards falls down, because then we don't believe a word they say ever. You know what I mean? And so it's just
crimes or involvement in them. The names are part of a lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell, who was sentenced to 20 years in prison for sex trafficking young girls for Epstein. CBS News correspondent Nancy Chen joins me now. Okay, Nancy, there's a lot to sift through. What do you know?
There is. We are going through this right now. We have a team combating and attacking this big document release that we just got. 40 documents in total.
Entire team.
More than, as you mentioned, 940 pages plus. We have a team going through this right now. We'll make sure to bring you updates. But here's what we do know.
Big team.
It's important to note that being named, as you mentioned, does not necessarily mean that someone had knowledge of or involvement in Epstein's crimes. What the documents also...
That's it! She said it. She said it. It is important to note that just because the names on the documents doesn't mean they were involved in the crimes. This is different. This is different now, okay? All that bad stuff that Epstein did, the underage, the stuff, the human trafficking, all that stuff, this is different. We're done talking about that. I need you to stop worrying about that. And just because it's kind of, sort of, it is the same thing, we're spinning it as if it's not, but it's kind of sort of the same thing. Just know it doesn't necessarily mean that, Bill Clinton was on the human trafficker's plane that flew him to the human trafficker's island where he had dinner with the human trafficker in the human trafficker's house with the human trafficking intentions. And so it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. And what Mrs. Chen here is trying to tell us is that, Nancy, listen, Nancy Chen wants you to know that it doesn't imply any wrongdoing on anyone's part except for Jeffrey Epstein. He's the real criminal. Jeffrey Epstein is the real criminal.